The car was already running when I realized I'd forgotten the sunscreen. That's what I remember most about that morning. Not the argument, not the thing my mother-in-law said when she showed up at our door. Not even the look on my husband's face when he finally said what he said. I remember standing in our kitchen scanning the counter for the blue bottle of SPF 50, thinking we had another 20 minutes before we needed to leave for the airport. We did not have 20 minutes. My husband. I'll call him by what I always call him when I'm telling a story like this, just my husband, because this isn't really his story to be named in. He had already loaded the car. 4 bags, 2 carry-ons, the little cooler with airport snacks because airport food is a crime against our bank account. He'd been up since 5. I married a man who gets excited about vacations the way most people get excited about Christmas morning, and I had spent 11 days watching him quietly vibrate with anticipation. He kept sending me links. Look at this restaurant. This beach is supposed to be incredible at sunrise. Do you think we should rent a kayak? We were going to Tulum. 2 weeks. Just the two of us. I want to say that again because I think it matters for the rest of what I'm about to tell you. Just the two of us. That was the plan from the beginning. That was always the plan. We'd booked it 8 months out. I'd used a week of vacation I'd been saving since the year before. My husband had coordinated with his manager to hand off every single one of his active projects. We had done everything right. The one thing we had not done right, and I know this now, I understand it completely now, was tell his mother about the trip. Not intentionally. Not like we sat down and thought, let's announce our vacation itinerary to the woman who once showed up to our anniversary dinner because she happened to know the restaurant. It slipped out in that way. Things slip out when you're excited and not thinking. He mentioned it on the phone with her sometime in February. Something like, yeah, we're actually going to Mexico this spring. That's all it took. By March, she was asking questions. Which hotel? Which part of Tulum? The beach zone or the town? How long? Were we flying direct? Did we have travel insurance? I thought it was just her being her. She's always needed to know things. Not because she worries, exactly. It's more that information feels like currency to her, and she likes to have a lot of it. I told my husband once that his mother doesn't ask questions because she wants answers. She asks questions because she wants to feel like she has a seat at the table. He said, I know, and looked a little tired when he said it. By April, she'd shifted from questions to suggestions. Had we looked into a different resort? She'd read a review that our hotel had noisy air conditioning units. There was a place about 12 miles south that was supposed to be quieter. Also, were we sure about the timing? Late May in Tulum is the start of humidity season. Had we considered moving it to March instead? We were leaving in late May. We'd already paid the non-refundable deposit. I let most of it go because I am, if nothing else, very good at letting things go when I decide they're not worth the energy. I smiled. I said, we'll keep that in mind. I passed the phone to my husband. This was my standard operating procedure with her, and it usually worked fine. And then, about 3 weeks before we were supposed to leave, she stopped. No more questions. No more alternate resort recommendations. No more humidity warnings. She called my husband twice that week about normal things. Something about a neighbor's tree, something about whether he remembered where she'd put a box from her storage unit. Normal calls. She sounded fine, cheerful even. I noticed. I said to my husband, your mom's been quiet about the trip, he said. Maybe she got it out of her system. I said, I did not believe that. But I also could not point to anything specific, and I've learned that you cannot raise an alarm when the evidence is literally, she stopped doing the thing I was complaining about. So I let it sit. I focused on packing. I made a list of things we needed from the pharmacy. I ordered a waterproof foam case and a new travel adapter and that specific kind of reef-safe sunscreen you can only find online. Which is why, on the morning of our departure, I was standing in the kitchen looking for the SPF 50. Found it, tucked it into my carry-on, looked at the time, we were fine, still a good margin before we needed to leave, and went to tell my husband I was ready. I got as far as the front hallway when the doorbell rang. I thought it was the neighbor who sometimes watches our cat. I opened the door. It was my mother-in-law. She had a suitcase. Not a big one of those medium-sized rolling bags, the kind that technically qualifies as a carry-on if you're willing to fight the gate agent about it, and she was wearing the expression she wears when she has decided she's doing something generous and wants you to notice that. "I thought I'd surprise you," she said. I stood there for what was probably 3 seconds but felt like significantly longer. "What's happening right now?" I said. It wasn't really a question. "I looked into it," she said, rolling her suitcase slightly forward, which I interpreted, correctly as it turned out, as a request to be let inside. "The flights aren't full. I checked this morning. I was able to get a seat on the same one you're taking." "You booked a flight last night? It wasn't expensive?" She said this like it was an important detail. "And I called the hotel. They have rooms available. I'll get my own room. Obviously, I'm not trying to impose." My husband appeared behind me. He'd heard the door. I watched his face go through approximately 5 emotions in 4 seconds. I recognized all of them. I had seen them before in other situations, in other doorways, in other moments where his mother had arrived somewhere she had not been invited and was waiting to see if anyone would say the thing out loud. "Mom," he said. "Don't make a face," she said. "I just want to spend time with you. I feel like I never see you anymore. You're going to be gone for 2 weeks? We're going to be gone for 2 weeks," I said. "My husband and I, on a trip we planned, alone." "I know that," she said pleasantly. "I'm not joining your trip. I'm just going to be in the same area. You'll barely notice I'm there. I want to tell you that I handled this with grace and calm. I want to tell you I took a breath, looked her in the eye, and said clearly and firmly, 'That's not going to work for us.' I want to tell you that my husband immediately stepped up, put his arm around me, and made it very clear that this was not happening. That is not what happened. What happened is that I looked at my husband, and my husband looked at his mother, and she was already talking about how she'd always wanted to see Tulum, and how she'd looked up a few restaurants we might like, and how she wouldn't be any trouble at all. She'd been so looking forward to this. And we went to the airport, all 3 of us. I have asked myself many times why I didn't stop it in that doorway. I've come up with a few answers. The flight was in 4 hours. I didn't want to spend those 4 hours fighting. I looked at my husband's face and I could see that he was already calculating the same thing. That stopping her would take more energy than we had. And that we would deal with it somehow. Manage it somehow. Carve out the parts of the trip that mattered. And get through the rest. Neither of us wanted to say the true thing, which was, we cannot let this happen. So we let it happen. The flight was 3 hours and 40 minutes. She sat 1 row behind us. I know because I could hear her. She made conversation with the person next to her for approximately 2 hours about her son and how rarely she got to see him and how she'd managed to book this trip at the last minute because she just couldn't stand the idea of him being away for 2 whole weeks without her. I put my headphones on. My husband squeezed my hand. We didn't talk much. Tulum from the air is genuinely beautiful. I want to say that because it's true, and because I want to give credit where it's due to a place that deserved better than what I was dragging into it. The blue of the water, the way the coast curves. I had a window seat and I leaned toward it, and for a few minutes I let myself just look, and I thought, this is still going to be good. We'll make it good. We got through customs fine. We got our bags. My husband went to find the shuttle we'd pre-booked while I waited with the luggage. His mother appeared next to me. "This is so exciting," she said. I said. "I've always wanted to come here. Did I tell you that? You mentioned it. It's even more beautiful than I imagined." She was looking around the arrivals hall with an expression of pure delight, and I understood in that moment that she had been looking forward to this. She had genuinely been excited. She had planned this, in her own way, as something joyful, and that made it worse, somehow, because I couldn't even be cleanly angry. I just felt incredibly, exhaustingly sad. The hotel was everything I'd hoped. I need to say that too. The room was gorgeous. One of those open-air thatched roof situations with a ceiling fan and white linens and a view of the jungle from the window. My husband and I stood in the doorway for a moment when we first walked in, and I felt something in my chest that wanted to be happy. His mother had a room 2 floors down. She texted while we were unpacking. "What time should we meet for dinner?" My husband read it over my shoulder. He put the phone down on the bed. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know. I should have stopped it at the door. Yes, I didn't know how." "I know that too." We went to dinner. All 3 of us at the restaurant I'd picked out back in January, the one with the tasting menu and the open kitchen and the reservations that had taken me 3 weeks to secure. She ordered for the table. She asked the server if anything could be made without cilantro, not for her, just in case, and then when the server said yes, she said, "Never mind. I think we're okay." She talked for most of the meal. She talked about my husband's childhood. She talked about the last time she'd been to a fancy restaurant. She talked about her neighbor's divorce and a podcast she'd been listening to, and a sale she'd seen at a home goods store that she thought I might like. I ate my food. I looked at the open kitchen. I thought about how I had imagined this meal for 8 months. The next morning, she knocked on our door at 7:15. I want to stop here for a second because I think there's a version of this story where everything I've described so far sounds manageable. Like, yes, it's annoying, yes, it's not what we planned, but it's a beautiful place, and you're with your husband and it could be worse. I thought that too. I kept trying to think that. But here's the thing about someone inserting themselves into every part of your day. It's not one big thing, it's 100 small ones. It's 7:15 knocks, and where are we going today? And standing a little too close when you're trying to look at a ruin together. It's the dinner reservation you'd planned as a romantic thing becoming a group activity. It's realizing on day 4 that you and your husband have barely had a real conversation since you landed, not because you have nothing to say, but because there's never a moment when it's just the 2 of you. On the 5th night, I came out onto our balcony after my husband fell asleep. I sat there for a while listening to the jungle sounds. The frogs are extraordinary there, I'll give it that. And I thought about what I actually wanted to do, not in a dramatic way, just practically. What did I want? I wanted my husband to understand, without me having to explain it in a way that made him feel attacked, that this was not sustainable, that I was running out of patience, that I had not saved vacation time for 11 months to spend it managing his mother's feelings about where to eat lunch. In the morning, I told him. I didn't say it gently. I didn't soften it. I was tired enough that the words just came out the way they actually were. "I need you to talk to her," I said. Not in an "I'll try to manage things" way. Actually talk to her. Tell her that the rest of this trip is ours. That we love her. That we will absolutely plan something with her when we get back. But that this specific thing, these 2 weeks, they need to be for us. He was quiet for a moment. "She's going to be upset," he said. "I know. She's going to say I'm choosing you over her. You are choosing me over her. You are choosing me over her. That's what married people do. That's what you're supposed to do." I said it without anger. I wasn't angry at that point, actually. I was past anger and into something calmer. "I'm not asking you to be mean to her. I'm asking you to be honest, and I'm telling you that if you can't do that, we need to have a much bigger conversation when we get home. Because I cannot keep doing this." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and texted his mother. "Can we meet downstairs this morning? Just us for a bit, need to talk to you." I went to the pool. I ordered a coffee. I sat in a chair that faced the ocean, and I watched a pelican do something inexplicable near the waterline, and I tried not to think about anything. He came to find me 45 minutes later. He sat down in the chair next to mine. He didn't say anything for a moment. "How did it go?" I said. She cried a little. "Okay." She said she thought she was being helpful. That she thought we would want her here. "What did you say?" He looked at the water. I said that I love her, and that she raised me to be someone who shows up for the people who matter to him, and that right now the person I need to show up for is my wife, and that she taught me that. She taught me that when you love someone, you protect that, and that's what I'm doing. He paused. And then I said that her flight home is bookable for tomorrow morning and that I would help her find a good seat and cover the change fee. I didn't say anything for a second. That's exactly right, I said. That's exactly what needed to be said. She's going home tomorrow. Okay, she's pretty hurt. I know, she'll be okay. I reached over and put my hand on his. You did the right thing. He took a breath. Let it out slowly. I should have done it at the door, he said. Yes, but you did it now. That matters too. She flew home the next morning. My husband drove her to the airport, a real drive, 40-something minutes each way. And he did it without complaining. They hugged before she went through security, a long one. He told me about it when he got back. He said she told him she was proud of him and that she understood, even if it stung. I don't know if that last part was entirely true, but I choose to believe it. We had 9 days left. I want to tell you that everything was immediately perfect after that, like a switch flipped and suddenly it was the trip we'd planned. It wasn't quite like that. It took a day to decompress, to stop waiting for a knock or a text, to remember that we didn't have to coordinate anything with anyone. We were slow that first full day alone. We slept late. We ate at a little place on the street that had plastic chairs and the best fish I've ever had in my life. We didn't talk about her much. By the third day, though, the third real day, it was what I'd imagined. We rented bikes and got completely lost trying to find a cenote someone at the hotel had recommended. We ate dinner at 9:30 at night like people who don't have anywhere to be. My husband found a mezcal he liked and bought a bottle to bring home. I finished an entire book sitting in a hammock without once checking my phone. We had long conversations about things that had nothing to do with family dynamics, about where we might want to be in 5 years, about a show we both wanted to watch when we got home, about the pelicans, because apparently they're always doing inexplicable things, and we both found that deeply funny. On our last evening there, we walked out to a spot on the beach where you could see the ruins lit up in the distance. We'd brought the mezcal. We sat on a piece of driftwood that was probably not very sanitary, and we passed the bottle back and forth, and watched the sky go pink, and then deep orange, and then that specific shade of blue that happens right before it's actually dark. Thank you, my husband said. For what? For not letting me pretend it was okay when it wasn't. I leaned my head against his shoulder. The frogs started up. The sky kept going. When we got home, we changed the locks. Not dramatically. We'd been meaning to do it anyway, honestly, because the locks were old. We also had a conversation, a real one, about what information we share going forward and with whom. Not a fight, just a conversation. We talked about what she needs, what we need, where those things can coexist and where they can't. My husband called her the day after we got back. I don't know everything that was said. I know it was long. I know it ended okay. She and I are fine. Fine is the right word, not close, not warm exactly, but functional. We see her for holidays. She asks about our plans less often. When she does ask, my husband gives her the broad strokes and leaves the details vague, not meanly, just carefully. She hasn't pushed. I think she understands now that there's a door, and that the door has always been there. We just hadn't been willing to close it. We're going to Portugal next spring. I have a spreadsheet and everything. My husband has already started sending me restaurant links. The hotel is booked under just our names. And this time we haven't told anyone. I've thought about that morning a lot since we got back. The doorbell, the suitcase. The expression on my mother-in-law's face, that particular kind of cheerfulness that has no room in it for the word no. And I've thought about what I did next, which was nothing. I stepped aside. We all got in the car and went to the airport, and I told myself we'd manage it somehow, which is what I always told myself, which is exactly how we ended up in that situation in the first place. Here's what I understand now that I didn't fully understand then. Every time you absorb something you should have addressed, you're not keeping the peace. You're just deferring the cost. The bill always comes. It came for us on day 5 of that trip, at 10 o'clock at night on a balcony in Tulum, when I sat alone listening to the frogs and finally admitted to myself that I was furious. Not at my mother-in-law, not really, but at myself. For knowing and not saying, for seeing the suitcase and stepping aside anyway. That's not a comfortable thing to sit with. But I think it's an important one. My husband grew up learning that his mother's distress was his problem to solve. That's not a criticism of him. It's just the pattern he inherited. The one that got laid down before he was old enough to question it. When you spend your whole childhood learning that the way to keep things stable is to give the anxious person in the room what they want, you don't unlearn that overnight. You don't unlearn it at a door at 7 in the morning with a flight in 4 hours. You unlearn it slowly, in conversations, in small moments where you choose differently than you would have before. What he did on day 6, calling her downstairs, sitting across from her, saying what needed to be said calmly and without cruelty, that took something real. Not dramatic, not loud, just clear. And I think clarity is actually the harder thing. Anyone can blow up. It takes genuine strength to stay steady and still say the true thing. I also think about what I said to him afterward, because I meant it. You did it now, and that matters too. I believe that. I don't think the only way to handle something right is to handle it perfectly the first time. Sometimes you get it wrong in the doorway and right on day 6. The point is that you get there. What I know for certain is this: protecting your marriage is not a betrayal of your family. It is not selfish. It is not cruel. It is the thing you promised to do when you made the commitment in the first place. My husband didn't choose me over his mother. He chose the version of himself that could hold a boundary and love her at the same time. Those two things are not opposites. They never were. We went to Portugal the following spring. We didn't tell anyone where we were staying until we were already home. Some lessons you only have to learn once.